Minasan konnichiwa. Hello everyone and welcome. Oh, you're sick of my super long intros that don't serve any purpose other than making you want to click off the video and watch something else? You think that the title is just enough and I should just get on with the video? Okay. So right in the beginning of the game, you play through a flashback, or like it's more of a flash forward or present day perspective, let's say, of a race between you and Razor, the main antagonist of the game. Then the game fades to black just to show you the flashback that shows the events that led up to the race against Razor. So it turns out that our protagonist went through a lot of shit to get to this moment. And that includes dealing with Cross, racing against this random asshole. I'm just kidding, Ronnie is the best character in the game. But seriously, the game just introduces him like, oh, while cruising the streets looking for a race. Anyway, you also race against this Canadian Asian guy while being chased by cops, and you did other stuff like building a reputation and winning other races. So the game is just trying to tell you that you didn't just magically become a top racer overnight, it took a lot of work to race against Razor. And as Ronnie said,
this here is the number 15 guy on the blacklist. You got a lot of rep to earn before you get to run with him.
So then the game takes you back to present day, which you played a bit of in the beginning. That's why I called it a flash forward. But this time you get to play the whole thing. So Razor decides to have a race against you and to put their cars on the line, meaning that whoever loses the race loses their car.
First I'm gonna take your ride, then I'm gonna take your girl. Get ready for that.
But to guarantee that Razor doesn't lose, he secretly sabotages our car, causing us to lose the race and the car, which is basically everything we owned at that point. Mia then hooks you up with a crappy car to help us get started again so that we race against Razor and get the car back. But then it turns out that he is now number 1 on this supposed blacklist, so we don't just get to race him immediately. Instead, you need to build your way up by defeating the other 14 blacklist members before you get to race against him. It is in this moment that you realize that everything that the main character worked for has been taken away from you and you just have to rebuild everything once again. Of course, this is made by design to provide players with a sense of progression and challenge, but it also serves as a valuable life lesson. Sometimes you will work your ass off only to discover that it was all for nothing and you will have to start all over from scratch. When that happens, you gotta realize that it's just a setup for a bigger comeback, and that's what happened in the game. So by the end of the game, we didn't just defeat Razor, we didn't just get our car back, we also became the number 1 on the blacklist. We became the most wanted racer in the city, and we built a collection of high-performance cars that were once owned by the racers we defeated. And since Razor had our car for a while, it got a free performance upgrade. Let's talk more about Mia. In the race against Razor, Mia gives us a call to tell us that there's something wrong with our car.
Hey, there's something wrong with your ride. You left a huge oil slick at the start line. You have to end the race fast.
And then, when we inevitably lost the race, Mia was also there to check out what happened. Then, sometime later, she picks you up from the police station and then takes you to this car dealership so that you can buy a new car. I said earlier that she hooked us up with a car, but she actually didn't. She just drove us to the dealership and then used our own money to buy the car. But that's beside the point. Then she provides us with a safe house where we can store our cars and, air quotes, lay low. And then she explains a plan on how to take our car back, which is basically getting through all the blacklist members. Then throughout the game, she regularly leaves you voice messages that give advice, encouragement, and tells you about new safe houses that she hooked you up with.
I hooked you up with another safe house closer to the coast. It saves you from having to drive back to Rosewood. Long way to go if the cops are on your tail.
She also gives you full access to the police database, which is basically a record and how it compares to other racers on the blacklist. So fast forward to the end of the game, when you race against Razor for the second time, she was also there to support you, I guess. And then after defeating him, Razor was still refusing to give you the car keys, saying that if you want them, you're gonna have to take them. But then Mia shows up, takes the car keys, takes down Razor, and that is when the plot twist is revealed. Mia is an undercover cop.
And if you want these, you're gonna have to take them.
It's over, Razor.
It ain't over until I say it's over.
Then a bunch of cops show up, so she gives you the car keys and tells you to get out of there.
I want every single unit after the guy.
Everyone?
Everyone!
Then you get into the infamous cop chase, where she calls you again for one last time, telling you that you cannot go to any of the safe houses, and the only way to escape the cops is to go to this old abandoned bridge and make the jump.
The JFU level's critical.
Mia's role wasn't really that big if you look at the game as a whole, but I think we can all agree that we'd rather have her in the game than not having her at all. And this is where we learn the importance of companionship. We sometimes take our companions for granted. And I'm not talking about those who give us direct support, I'm talking about those who just exist in the background, even if they're not offering any direct support, just like Mia throughout the game. The mere existence of these people in our lives makes a huge difference, even if we don't feel it. For example, siblings can really be annoying, right? But if you ask around, 9 times out of 10, everyone would admit that they'd rather have them around and be annoying than not having them at all. And that's because people crave connection and companionship, even if it's not perfect or convenient. There were a combination of things that made Most Wanted 2005 the most wanted Need for Speed game of all time. That includes many things like the progression system, the cop chases, the characters, the car customization, the music, the general aesthetic, and finally, although mediocre, it had a story that tried to link everything together. But then in 2012, Criterion Games came out and said, we're gonna reboot the franchise and make our own Most Wanted game. But despite the hype and anticipation, it sucked. It's as if they expected the name to just automatically make the game good. Yeah, it looked great and everything, but we all quickly learned that you cannot judge a book by its cover. And that's because they overlooked the elements that made the original so successful. So if we look at Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012, we will see that it had a progression system, if you can call it that, because you could basically access most of the game's content right from the start, which didn't feel like it had any sense of progression. It had cop chases, but it wasn't nearly as good as the original. It had music, and it wasn't really that bad, but it didn't fit the tone and atmosphere of the game like the original. And speaking of atmosphere, the aesthetics were fine, but everything was just so bright and shiny, which made it feel as if I'm racing in a simulation rather than feeling like I'm street racing. There were no characters. They only had these nameless drivers who happened to have a supercar, and to make things even worse, you'd think that each car would at least look unique to reflect the personality of their owners, but they just look stock, like they just bought them off the dealership. And you might be wondering, why is that? And that's because the game didn't have any visual customization other than changing the color of the car, which was also done at random. I think that you cannot judge a book by its cover is a very popular saying for a reason. And that's because if you just look at the names of these two games, you'd think that it can't be that different, right? But if you dig a bit deeper, you'll soon realize that Most Wanted 2012 is a pile of garbage and it's a disgrace to the original. I'm not saying that you should always be skeptical and dig deep into everything, that would be a waste of time, but when it comes to big or expensive decisions like maybe accepting a job offer or buying a new house, yeah, you should take your time to look beyond the surface and do your research, because you don't want to get Most Wanted 2012 thinking that it will be Most Wanted 2005. Anyway, let's just end the video with something wise, because I always do. Just as a racing game is no fun without a few tricky turns, life is not fulfilling without a bit of a challenge. Anyway, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, then check out my other video that should be on the screen right now, which talks about something related to Detroit Become Human or something. But anyway, until next time, Jane, bye bye.